live streaming. I appreciate you all, whether you are watching me on YouTube or on Rumble. Before I start this conversation with you and shedding light what's happening in Palestine and in Lebanon, I would like to encourage all of you watching this live streaming to also register on Rumble and follow this YouTube channel on Rumble as well. There is an attempt to silence the independent journalist, and there is a campaign by apparently YouTube targeting independent journalists and basically closing their YouTube accounts, disabling their YouTube accounts, and two of our friends and colleagues' YouTube channels, for example, DD Geopolitics and Marx Leboda, have been closed by YouTube. So I just encourage you to have an account on Rumble just in case this YouTube channel gets censored and closed as well. We are approaching to the US elections in November, and it seems that there are elements in the US intelligence who believe that probably some of these channels may try to influence the outcome of the US elections. I'm not interested at all in the US elections. I don't care about Trump or Biden or Kamala Harris, and I believe all of them are the same, including Bobby RFK when it comes to foreign policy in the Middle East. They are competing among each other who is worse and who is more loyal and who is more pro Israel in this case. Therefore, I have no bread in this, and I don't care at all who wins the elections, because whatever the result of these elections, it's not going to change or impact my life or the life of my family in any positive way or shape, whether it's in Syria or in Lebanon or in Palestine. Therefore, yes, one of the commentators, Christian, says YouTube is purging. They are purging. So please also follow this YouTube channel on Rumble. I would really appreciate that. Now, I've been following the developments in Lebanon since early morning, and it's very difficult to watch all the footage and the destruction and the deaths among the Lebanese people. And when I make comments on X, today I received a comment from a German historian, basically, trying to discredit my commentaries on Lebanon and trying to tell me that we have to listen to both sides of the story. I would like to say this with complete honesty. I have no time to listen to both sides of the story when it comes to death and destruction of oppressed people, when it comes to the Palestinian people who have been living under over 80 years of subjugation and oppression and subjugation and all sorts of discrimination against them. I have no time at all to see both sides of the story when one side can kill over 600 civilians in a matter of 48 hours and with complete impunity. Just imagine if Russia slaughtered 600 Ukrainian civilians in just 48 hours. Do you honestly think that the so-called international community or the rules-based order would just sit by and do nothing about it? Or is it the blood of the Levantine people considered so worthless, so expendable that their lives do not even matter? Think about it. So this is just to encourage the people to think about these cases, and I have in no way or shape calling for death or destruction against any other people. I would love for the Jewish people to live in peace and in stability alongside their Arab sisters and brothers, just like they lived in the Middle East for centuries with the Arab people, with the Levantine people, with the Armenian people, with all sorts of shapes of the society. And this problem only started when Israel has been created. So I'm just here trying to make provocative commentaries sometimes for the people to start thinking what is happening in the Middle East and on whose side they can probably sympathize, because I think the situation is quite clear for everyone who wants to think about it in an open mind way. So Israel launched today again massive airstrikes against southern Lebanon towns and cities. And this was the worst, let's say, airstrike since 2006 war between Israel and Hezbollah. this has spread lots of terror and despair among the Lebanese people, and over 600 civilians have been killed, including women and children. Over 50 children have been killed since 48 hours in Lebanon, and wounded over 2,500 people, according to the official Lebanese authorities, and not Hamas-linked or Hezbollah-linked affiliated health ministry like the mainstream media tries to portray all the time when it comes to counting the number of deaths in Gaza. And by the way, the number of the deaths in Gaza, the numbers that they were able to count, is over 40,000. And there are estimates that the number of the casualties are over 160,000, because there are thousands of people under the rubble, and there are no equipment for any government or any official, let's say, side in Gaza to clean the rubble and take the people out of the rubble. So there are many, many people who died under the rubble that nobody was able to take them out of the rubble. Israel's prime minister, of course, the bigger liar in this conflict, Benjamin Netanyahu, who is hated not only by the people in Palestine and Lebanon and Syria, he is also hated by the majority of the Israelis. Now, he said that his country is changing the balance of power on its northern front, as its military, he says that they have conducted 1,600 airstrikes in southern Lebanon, and they have, according to official estimates, they have destroyed 50 to 60% of Hezbollah's missile capabilities, of the long range and medium range missile capabilities. Now, this type of hasbara and this type of lies, it's probably good for the short run if he wants to sell the illusion to his own people that he's doing something against Hezbollah, and he is able to destroy the long range and medium range missile capabilities of Hezbollah 50 to 60%. So imagine that Hezbollah has over 200,000 probably rockets and missiles, and he is claiming that he probably destroyed 100,000 to 120,000 of these missiles and rockets. I mean, there is no one in his sane brain who could believe these allegations, and we have to wait for a few more days to just see that these missiles they will never stop flying over northern occupied Palestine, and you will see that these claims are all false. And he never stops there, because there are so many allegations today made by the Israeli officials, and in this live streaming we're going to address many of them, and I'm going to show you how much the Israeli side lies blatantly in this case, because they're immune. They are immune from repercussions. Nobody will come and take Netanyahu to The Hague, and nobody is going to tell Israeli side to stop their atrocities in Lebanon or Palestine. Some people, of course, they would like for Israel to stop, but when I mean nobody will come and do something about it, I mean the so-called international community, right? In return, Hezbollah responded by attacking several military sites in Israel. They have bombed the military base or the military airport of Megiddo. This is located in west of Afula. It targeted the Ramat David military base and airport near Haifa, also with rockets, and another second attack against the military airport Megiddo again, and also targeted the Amos base, which is the main logistics and transport base for the northern region, with a barrage of Fadi 1 rockets, and striked explosives factory in Zichron area, 60 kilometers from the border, with Fadi 2 rockets, and the third strike on the Megiddo military airport. Most of these attacks were by Fadi 1, Fadi 2 missiles. Those missiles are developed by the Syrian Arab Army factories. And people are asking me, how does Syria send these missiles to Hezbollah? Basically, they don't send the missiles to Hezbollah. They send the parts of these missiles, and then Hezbollah assembles them in southern Lebanon. They have their own factories there. Or they come to Syria, to the research centers and the factories in Syria, and they learn how to assemble and build these missiles. And then they go back to southern Lebanon and they build the copies of these missiles. Today, Benny Gantz says that if Israel doesn't stop if Nasrallah, sorry, doesn't stop firing rockets and missiles against Israel, he will be forced to carry out a ground operation to return the residents of the north. I think this would be the biggest trap for the Israeli side. They can inflict heavy, probably, damage to the popular base of Hezbollah or the Lebanese people, the infrastructure in Lebanon by airstrikes, but they can, in my opinion, going to Lebanon and sending boots underground, that would be a fatal mistake by the Israeli side. This is something I believe that Hezbollah is waiting for, and this is where the real combat that you will see that this is the balance of power will not be on the side of Israel. This is just my opinion. The time will tell and prove whether I am correct or not in this case. Now, today, the Israeli side dropped hundreds of flyers, thousands of flyers over southern Lebanon and in the Bekaa Valley. And on these papers, there are QR codes and asking the people to scan the QR codes with their mobiles. And I posted on my X and my Facebook account warning the Lebanese people, those who follow me, not to scan these QR codes because the official reason by the Israeli side for these flyers is that if you scan the QR code, then they will tell you where are the safe zones and if you have to leave your area or not. Now, this is a big hasbara again, in my opinion. If the Israelis were interested in securing or giving a safe passage for the Palestinians or to the Lebanese now in southern Lebanon, they would probably just drop flyers telling them in Arabic, written on these papers, that where they can go and where are the safe zones. And rest assured, there are no safe zones in Lebanon or in Palestine at the moment. However, if them, technically speaking, they wanted to tell the people where to go, they could have just written what they wanted to tell to the people, why there is a QR code. Why insisting on the QR code? Probably because they want to suck the data and the info from these people, and they could also probably track these people on the GPS and then target them. So if you're a Lebanese and watching, I would highly recommend, and I warn you not to scan these QR codes. That's a really big trap. And believe me, Israel has an AI system, the Lavender system, which detects what they call people who work for Hezbollah or affiliated to Hezbollah. And I will give you an example. If there is someone, A, whose cousin or third cousin or the first cousin is probably from Hezbollah, he will be considered affiliated to Hezbollah. And Lavender will detect this person and they will give his location to the drone, and the drone will choose the target. And the human, let's say, intervention in this is going only to be the last decision to kill this person or not. And under this Lavender AI system, Israeli army is permitted to kill over 10 civilians if they want to kill someone from Hamas affiliated or Hezbollah affiliated person. And if they detect someone that they consider a senior Hezbollah or senior, let's say, Hamas, and they want to eliminate this person, they're permitted to kill over 100 civilians in the discourse of killing this person. So be aware of these very dangerous developments. Now, the spokesperson of the Israeli occupation forces, he posted a video statement, and I would like to show you this video because those are the allegations made before this recent serious escalation against Lebanon. And this is what he has to say about this case. Let's first watch the 1.5 minute of this statement, and I will comment on it.
About an hour ago, following indications that Hezbollah was preparing to fire towards Israeli territory, we began striking terrorist targets throughout Lebanon. The Hezbollah terrorist organization has been continuously launching attacks on Israeli civilians and has no plans to stop. This is southern Lebanon. There are dozens of Lebanese villages situated along approximately 80 kilometers of the border with Israel. For over 20 years, Hezbollah has deployed its arms inside homes and militarized civilian
So, according to him, Hezbollah has stored all its missiles and rockets inside civilian homes. So,
infrastructure. As a result, the Hezbollah terrorist organization has turned southern Lebanon into a battlefield.
So, what is his evidence now? Check his evidence for this outrageous claim.
This is a village in southern Lebanon.
It's made by, it's like an illustration. It's made by graphic design. It's not even a real footage.
Hezbollah stores cruise missiles.
Basically, Hezbollah is storing cruise missiles and long-range missiles inside residential buildings, as you can see. And this is just made by, like, it's a graphic for the graphic footage. It is not a real footage. So they don't have a real footage for it because they don't have an evidence for it, right?
Rockets, launchers, and UAVs inside civilian homes, hidden behind the Lebanese population.
So if they know this, all this is true. So where is the actual footage of it? Where is the footage showing us that such a truck is coming out of a residential building and firing against the Israeli side?
Living in the village. We are monitoring these activities, locating the weapons, and destroying them with precise intelligence based strikes. I want to show you an example of a strike carried
Look at this example that he gives now. Another example made by 3D animation.
out a few weeks ago.
Look at this building, just a single building in the middle of nowhere. So he says that there is a cruise missile inside it. So let's suppose there is a cruise missile inside this building. Where is the launcher? Like, how can this missile fly and be launched? Like, is the rooftop of this building would be open? How can this cruise missile would be fired against Israel? Just for an argument's sake, if he's really legit, you know.
Here we are exposing Hezbollah's method of
Look, sorry, but this is so laughable, you know, like when you see this type of illustrations on 3D and the type of lies that they are repeating, they because they're out of lies at the moment, right? They cannot have new ones at the current moment. So this is the one that they want to tell us that Hezbollah is storing DR-3 cruise missiles inside a building. I truly want to know how can this missile would be launched? How would this missile be launched against the Israeli side? Let's suppose this is an accurate information. Where is the launcher? And how is this missile going to be launched against the Israeli side? This is a serious question that they would never ask. And as if this was not enough, the 3D animation, now we have another official, and I think this is the Israel's Minister of Foreign Affairs. He's basically telling us he made a photo with an AI, and he says Nasrallah is deploying Hezbollah's missiles in the homes of Lebanese citizens using the civilian population as human shields. Any civilian living near Hezbollah weapons should leave their home immediately for their own safety. Guys, can you really believe this? Like, they are using AI generated pictures now. The official, like this guy is the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Israel. Haven't they already used all these Hasbara tactics in Gaza? And why are they repeating here? Because there is no repercussion against Israel, as I mentioned. They can lie and lie and lie about these cases, and nobody is checking them, and nobody is um, um, put these people into check and send them to the Hague. This is a serious situation. This is now a complete hasbara and complete justification for the killing of over 600 civilians in a matter of 48 hours. Remember, if I'm not mistaken, I just want to just make sure about an information. July war 2006 casualty rate, the Lebanon. I just want to make sure before I say something that would not be 100% true. So in 2006 July war, which lasted over 33 days, the civilian casualties among the Lebanese side is 1,200 Lebanese civilians. So in 33 days, Israel killed 1,200 civilians in 2006. Now, Israel killed over 600, half of this number, only in a matter of 48 hours. So imagine the type of warfare that they are conducting nowadays. I'm going to show you some pictures of casualties that among the civilian population. It's important because those are all human, human stories, right? And I want for the people to see the faces of these casualties and think about them. So those are the people who were killed, some of the people who were killed in the past few days by the Israeli occupation forces in southern Lebanon. And she, for example, was an engineer. Excuse me, this is the picture. She was the engineer. Um, and she was killed also yesterday in her home alongside her family. Those are the people that are getting killed, because I'm showing you the pictures because there is a serious attempt to dehumanize the Lebanese people, the Palestinian people, trying to portray them as all like they are some sort of terrorists. But you have this guy who is basically posting a video, and he says, message for the people of Lebanon. Let's take a look what he has to say to the Lebanese people.
I have a message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you, it's with Hezbollah. For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living.
So basically, he says he's first of all sending a message to the Lebanese people in English. Nobody knows why he's talking to the Lebanese people in English. And secondly, why there is no Arabic subtitles. Does he think that every Lebanese in southern Lebanon understands English? This message is directed to the Western audience, to the people who still foolishly believe in every lie that this guy says. And what he says is, for too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. So we're going to come to Lebanon and kill you to free you from Hezbollah. This is what I understand from this video.
I have a message for the people of Lebanon. Israel's war is not with you, it's with Hezbollah. For too long, Hezbollah has been using you as human shields. It placed rockets in your living rooms and missiles in your garage. Those rockets and missiles are aimed directly at our cities, directly at our citizens. To defend our people against Hezbollah strikes, we must take out those weapons. Now, starting this morning, the IDF has warned you to get out of harm's way. I urge you, take this warning seriously. Don't let Hezbollah endanger your lives and the lives of your loved ones. Don't let Hezbollah endanger Lebanon. Please, get out of harm's way now. Once our operation is finished, you can come back safely to your homes.
Once it is over and once they occupy these areas and imprison the people. For those who do not know, Israel attacked Lebanon in 1978 when there was no Hezbollah. Hezbollah is the consequence of the Israeli occupation of Lebanon for too long. Hezbollah has been established in 82 to fight against the Israeli occupation of southern Lebanon. This guy thinks that everyone is just foolish to believe every single word that he says. But there are people who made really nice videos, and I would like to give them credit by showing their videos. This is by Tim Foley. And Caitlin Johnson, she published this video on her page. She says, going from the civilian buildings of Hamas to the civilian buildings of Hezbollah. So I guess we are doing this again. If you liked all the civilian buildings of Hamas, you will love Israel's new hit, all the civilian buildings of Hezbollah. So this is a video by Tim Foley. Take a look.
Going from the civilian buildings are Hamas to the civilian buildings are Hezbollah. Notes from the edge of the narrative matrix. I have no patience for people who this late in the game still say they don't know enough about the Palestine situation to have an opinion. It's like, okay, well, that's a character flaw, and you should change it. Western ignorance and indifference on this issue is hurting real human beings. You don't get to just be all, tee-hee, I don't like learning, and expect this attitude to be treated as some kind of cute little personal foible. It's not a complicated issue, bitch. Learn. Now that Israel has ramped up its attacks on Lebanon, the IDF is saying that Hezbollah are hiding missiles in civilian homes. So I guess we're doing this again. If you liked All the Civilian Buildings Are Hamas, you'll love Israel's new hit, All the Civilian Buildings Are Hezbollah. Israel has spent a year committing genocide, attacking its neighbors, trying to start World War III, destroying hospitals, assassinating journalists, and lying. Yet next month, the entire Western political media class is still going to spend a day tearfully portraying it as a victim. Here's a comment from someone on Twitter. Is your pager on you? Response from Caitlin. Been seeing these fun quips around a lot lately. The joke is that maybe Israel will murder me with a weaponized electronic device for criticizing its actions. Ha 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 ha. Everyone who publicly criticizes Israel gets accused of working for Hamas and Hezbollah. And now Israel apologists are showing up in our notifications making jokes about murdering us with weaponized electronic devices. They're deliberately trying to sow fear among Western critics of Israel. This is who these people are. This is the quality of person who supports Israel. They'd happily murder us all with the push of a button, just because we criticized their favorite apartheid state. Netanyahu has reportedly said he is considering a plan for the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in northern Gaza. After a year of lies and spin, they're finally starting to get a bit honest about what this has always been about. Here's a tweet by Tom Cotton. Hezbollah, unprovoked, started launching thousands of rockets at Israeli civilians after October 7th. No other country would accept this. Comment from Caitlin. It was unprovoked. Israel was just minding its own business, trying to commit a little genocide in peace. And Hezbollah started firing rockets at them completely out of nowhere. CNN, the Jewish Insider, and the Anti-Defamation League have been colluding in a full-scale mass media psyop to deceive the public into thinking Michigan Representative Rashida Tlaib made an anti-Semitic comment about her state's attorney general. CNN's Jake Tapper has been knowingly lying about comments Tlaib made in an interview, falsely reporting that the Congresswoman said Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel only filed charges against anti-genocide protesters because she's Jewish and the protesters are not. CNN's Dana Bash then repeated these false allegations. It never happened. They made the whole thing up. Tlaib never made comments remotely of that nature, and the reporter who did the interview has been all over social media saying CNN is falsely reporting on her words. It's perhaps not the most significant thing happening in the world right now, but it does say important things about the outlets and reporters who tell people how to look at major world events in our society. Biden had another lost at the podium moment the other day, this time forgetting he was meant to be introducing Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi after a speech. Biden's supporters were so rabidly nasty to those of us who said he has dementia. They called us Russian agents, fascists, and conspiracy theorists. They never admitted they were wrong. They just pulled him from the race and, much like their president, forgot the whole thing. It's so surreal how we're all seeing clear and undeniable evidence that the US has no functioning president and doesn't actually need one, even as the presidential race consumes all political energy and attention in the nation for months. During a speech at the Israeli-American Council on Thursday, Donald Trump admitted that while he was president, the late megadonor Sheldon Adelson and his wife Miriam were at the White House almost more than anybody outside of people that worked there, demanding political favors for Israel, and that he gave them what they wanted. In 2013, Sheldon Adelson said the U.S. should drop a nuclear bomb on Iran. This was the sociopathic oligarch who, according to Trump, essentially bought his way into the White House via campaign donations. Donald Trump is a big fat Israel slut. If the US and UK carved out a piece of China or Russia and gave it to the Mormons, that new nation would exist in a continuous state of Western-backed violence for as long as it existed. Israel exists in a continuous state of Western-backed violence for the exact same reason.
Guys, let me know if you like to see Kaitlyn on the show. If you are a fan of her work, she follows me on X and I could send her an invite to come. I don't know if she would accept, and she likes to participate in such conversations because I haven't seen her recent times on any YouTube channel participating in a conversation or Q&A or etc. But this video is fascinating. It shows you a lot about the current affairs in Palestine and in Israel and the unchecked, let's say, historical and maniacal attacks being conducted by the Israeli side, not only militarily, but also against the opponents and those who speak up against the Israeli crimes. This is something very, very important, guys, for you to realize. Your objection for the Israeli crimes is very, very important, and that is why we are suppressed, demonetized, and deplatformed from these social media platforms, because they don't want for the majority of the people to see and learn about what's happening around the world. And remember, the sad reality is that they have a monopoly over all sorts of platforms and technologies. Therefore, YouTube nowadays is the second biggest search engine in the world. So anyone who would like to learn something about politics, technology, social affairs, all sorts of things, they go to YouTube. This is the second most researched or searched website around the world, the platform. So when they deplatform you from there, you are losing the second biggest audience around the world. But this is going to change. Like, it is a slow process. I hope that it would be drastic. People would really jump the wagon and go and register to Rumble and follow me on X, for example. For those who just joined this conversation or this live streaming, I highly encourage you to follow the Syriana Analysis YouTube channel, or the channel. I keep calling it the YouTube channel because I started as a YouTube channel on Rumble as well. The link is in the description below. That would be a great help for me as well, in case when I am deplatformed on this from this YouTube platform. And because the Israeli officials have made AI generated photos trying to prove a point, I also made a AI generated photo today. I mean, it's very easy. And I said, breaking news: Hezbollah moved the missiles from the living rooms to the puppy house. You see, it's very easy. Now you see there are rockets and missiles inside the puppy house. The only objection that I had, that you want to see puppies being bombed? Like, seriously, I would never want that. And one person says, honestly, I think that's a birdhouse, but point well taken on how insane the claim is they have made. And I want to punish the AI photo generator for this grave mistake. This house should have been a little bit bigger in order for us to fit a cruise missile inside it. This just looks like a cornet rocket, you know. Now, jokes aside, guys, for those who don't know, I follow the videos and the statements made by Hezbollah because this is my job to learn about the Middle East, unlike many, many people who those who claim to be experts. And these are screenshots from a video published by Hezbollah, I think, 2 months ago. So those are the bunkers and the tunnels that Hezbollah has established under the mountains in southern Lebanon, under non-residential areas. Okay. And those are the bunkers where they store their missiles and their rockets. And those are the places. Do you see this, for example, track here on the left side? This is the launcher of the missile. So they come and they have spaces to move under the ground and then fire these missiles. They cannot be hidden, guys, in residential buildings. Those are complete bogus and lies. Now, I don't usually I'm not here to assess the foreign policy of other countries, especially a country like Iran. However, I would like to criticize the recent interview by the president of Iran, who is now at the moment in the UN, Masoud Pezeshkian. And he was with Farid Zakaria, and he discussed the escalation between Hezbollah and Israel. And he was asked a very clear and concrete question, and his answer is completely irrelevant, and it's not related to what Zakaria has asked him. And he has sent shockwaves around across the Middle East. And now many of the critics of Iran, those who already are obsessed with Iran and they hate Iran because of sectarian reasons, or because they believe Iran is a Farsi country and we are Arabs, or because it's a Shia country and the Arabs are mostly Arab Sunnis, and they always like to divide the Middle Eastern people into vertical lines because they are either useful idiots or they are collaborators with the US intelligence and the Israeli intelligence. Now they have picked this interview and they have capitalized on it, and I'm going to show you an example of it soon. But this is a very bad, I would say, statement and very bad contribution by the president of Iran on CNN. Take a look.
Will you counsel Hezbollah to restrain itself We know that Iran has a lot of influence over Hezbollah.
Hezbollah by herself cannot stand against a country that is armed to the teeth and has access to weapon systems that are far superior to anything.
So the question was, will Iran support Hezbollah, or is Iran supporting Hezbollah? And he says that Hezbollah cannot stand alone against Israel that is supported by the United States.
Else. Now, if there is a need, Islamic countries must convene a meeting in order to formulate a reaction to what is occurring. Now, if we're speaking of Hezbollah alone, what can Hezbollah do alone? The regional countries, Islamic countries must sit together, and prior to anything more severe taking place, I do believe that international organizations, today we did have a meeting at the United Nations with Mr. Guterres, and tomorrow we will see such discussions and topics taking place, and we must not allow for Lebanon to become another Gaza at the hands of Israel. Hezbollah cannot do that alone. Hezbollah cannot stand alone against a country that is being defended and supported and supplied by Western countries, European countries.
Look, maybe, just to think about this critically, maybe he wanted to say that we are supporting Hezbollah because Hezbollah is our ally and Israel is also supported by the US, and it's unfair that Israel has a unlimited support from the US. Why don't we also support Hezbollah because it's our ally and we want for Lebanon not to become another Gaza, right? It could have been said in a really in a way better way. The way he said this, Hezbollah cannot win, Hezbollah would be destroyed, Hezbollah cannot do not stand a chance in front of this is the message that I received. I mean, in 82 Hezbollah fought against Israel. In 2000 Hezbollah kicked the Israeli occupation forces out of Lebanon, and in 2006 again kicked the Israeli occupation forces out of Lebanon. And the United States back then supported Israel, now supports Israel. So what has changed? Why is this talk now in the UN, during the UN General Assembly meeting? And what type of message is he sending to the people who support Hezbollah or to the Hezbollah itself? Now, people came and capitalized on it, and they said, "Oh, look, Iran has pushed Hezbollah under the bus." And some people even went further and started making other types of allegation. And this guy is very disgusting, in my opinion. His name is Sami Hamdi. One of the worst, disgusting sectarian persons that I have seen on this podcast business. So this is what he has to say. He says, for Iran, Israel is not the priority. Conquering the Sunni lands is the priority. Take a look.
For Iran, Israel is not the priority. Conquering the Sunni lands is the priority. Iran believes these are priorities. Iran believes that it needs to cement itself in these areas first. Israel is a distraction. Israel is only sufficient insofar as a few rockets make the Muslim world clap, in that there is some sort of resistance. But you are focused more on Saudi Arabia. You're more focused on the Arab states. You're more focused on entrenching yourself, entrenching the Shia ideology in these areas where you find your support. Hadi al-Amari, for example, an Iraqi, once famously stated that if Iraq and Iran went to war, I would fight on the Iranian side against the Iraqis. Hassan Nasrallah, who once had the reputation of being a Salah ad-Din of the Muslim world after what happened in 2008 when he wreaked havoc on the Israelis, gave up all of that goodwill on the order of the Iranians, who asked him to cross over into Syria and break the back of the Free Syria army. The point here being is, it's not that Iran is showing immense restraint in that it's a positive or negative thing. For Iran, Israel is not the priority. The conquering the Sunni lands is the priority. Conquering Syria is the priority. Conquering Iraq is the priority. Establishing and entrenching your influence there is the priority. And we do not think about Israel until these aims are achieved.
This guy is the biggest clown and the biggest sectarian hater against the Shias in the region. And I said Hezbollah intervened in Syria to fight against the so-called Free Syrian Army that was supported, armed, and funded by who? The CIA spent $1 billion per year on the armed insurgency in Syria, and this clown wants you to believe that Hezbollah went to Syria to spread Shiism. And this is something that the Americans have thought about for a long time. The Americans had a project in the early 2000s to demonize Iran in the region and to create the perception among the Muslim population in the Arab world, those are majority are Sunnis, that their real enemy are the Shiites. And this guy, knowingly and unknowingly, he is either an useful idiot or he is a collaborator with the CIA, NED, Muslim Brotherhood types, probably even Mossad. I don't know. I'm just saying that he could also be just a useful idiot. There are so many of them trying to divide the Arab world, the Islamic world into vertical lines, divide them into sectarian lines. This is what Israel wants. This is what the United States wants. He's doing the Israeli job, basically. It's very sad, but these people are utter liars. And believe me when I say that these people are complete liars. And I challenge them multiple times to to debate me, and they don't dare to debate me because they know the facts are on my side in this case. So this is not from a pro-Iranian outlet, right? This is from the New York Times. And this is an article published in 2017. It's published in August 2017. Behind the sudden death of a 1 billion secret CIA war in Syria. So let's see, what is this so-called Free Syrian Army that he was speaking about and that Hezbollah went to Syria to fight? The end came quickly for one of the costliest covert action programs in the history of the CIA. One of the costliest covert programs in the history of the CIA. This was in Syria. During a White House briefing early last month, this was so in July 2017, the CIA director Mike Pompeo recommended to President Trump that he shut down a 4-year-old effort to arm and train Syrian rebels. The president swiftly ended the program. The rebel army was by then a shell hollowed out by more than a year of bombing by Russian planes and confined to ever-shrinking patches of Syria that government troops had not reconquered. Critics in Congress had complained for years about the costs, more than $1 billion over the life of the program, and reports that some of the CIA supplied weapons had ended up in the hands of the rebel group tied to Al-Qaeda, further sapped political support for the program. The shuttering of the CIA program, one of the most expensive efforts to arm and train rebels since the agency's program arming the Mujahideen in Afghanistan during the 1980s, has forced a reckoning over its successes and failures. The program did have periods of success, including in 2015 when rebels using tank-destroying missiles supplied by the CIA and also Saudi Arabia routed government forces in northern Syria. But by late 2015, the Russian military offensive in Syria was focusing squarely on the CIA-backed fighters battling Syrian government troops. Many of the fighters were killed, and the fortunes of the rebel army reversed. So, who was paying them? The CIA. This so-called Sami, he's not telling you the story that this so-called Free Syrian Army were basically supported by the CIA. And if you ask me, was the CIA doing this because they wanted to create an anti-Israeli government in Damascus, or were they doing this in order to remove Assad and install a pro-Israeli government in Damascus? After the Washington Post first reported on his decision, Mr. Trump tweeted that he was ending, quote, massive, dangerous, and wasteful payments to Syrian rebels fighting Assad. During an interview with the Wall Street Journal last month, the president said many of the CIA's supplied weapons ended up in the hands of Al-Qaeda, presumably a reference to the Al-Qaeda-affiliated Nusra Front, which often fought alongside the CIA-backed rebels. Once CIA-trained fighters crossed into Syria, CIA officers had difficulty controlling them. The fact that some of their CIA weapons ended up with Nusra Front fighters and that some of the rebels joined the group confirmed the fears of many in the Obama administration when the program began. Although the Nusra Front was widely seen as an effective fighting force against Mr. Assad's troops, its Qaeda affiliation made it impossible for the Obama administration to provide direct support for the group. American intelligence officials estimate that the Nusra Front now has as many as 20,000 fighters in Syria, making it Al Qaeda's largest affiliate. In the summer of 2012, David Petraeus, who was then CIA director, first proposed a covert program of arming and training rebels as Syrian government forces bore down on them. The proposal forced a debate inside the Obama administration, with some of Mr. Obama's top aides arguing that Syria's chaotic battlefield would make it nearly impossible to ensure that weapons provided by the CIA could be kept out of the hands of militant groups like the Nusra Front. Mr. Obama rejected the plan, but he changed his mind the following year, signing a presidential finding authorizing the CIA to covertly arm and train small groups of rebels at bases in Jordan. The president's reversal came in part because of intense lobbying by foreign leaders, including King Abdullah II of Jordan and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel, who argued that the United States should take a more active role in trying to end the conflict. Netanyahu, who is committing now genocide in Palestine, he lobbied and he pressured Obama to sign the CIA covert operation to train and arm the Free Syrian Army that this idiot Sami is defending. And he says that Hezbollah went to fight them because he, in his small brain, he thinks that these FSA people, Free Syrian Army, were the Syrian people. Given the code name Timber Sycamore, this was the name of the program, the covert program began slowly, but by 2015, the CIA-backed rebels groups had made significant progress against Syrian forces, pushing into areas of the country long considered to be government strongholds. The offensive gained momentum after the CIA and Saudi Arabia began supplying the powerful tank-destroying weapons to the rebel groups. But the rebel push in Idlib, Hama, and Latakia provinces in northern Syria also created problems for Washington. The Nusra Front, often battling alongside the CIA-supported rebel groups, made its own territorial gains. It was Nusra's battlefield successes that Mr. Putin used as one justification for the Russian military offensive in Syria, which began in 2015. The Russian campaign, a relentless bombing of the CIA-backed fighters and Nusra militants, battered the rebels and sent them into retreat. White House officials also received periodic reports that the CIA-trained rebels had summarily executed prisoners and committed other violations of the rules of armed conflict. Sometimes the reports led to the CIA suspending cooperation with groups accused of wrongdoings. Backed by Russian aircraft, Syrian government forces gradually began to reclaim areas near the Turkish border that had long been rebel strongholds and eventually pushed many of the rebels back to the besieged city of Aleppo. But then Aleppo fell to the Syrian government troops in December. So this was the same reason why Hezbollah intervened in Syria, to fight against these terrorist groups. Those groups were supported by the CIA. These people now come and try to portray it as if Hezbollah went to Syria to fight against the Syrian people, and they are doing it in the same Zionist way, a huge big hasbara against Syria, against us as Syrian people, and they're sitting in London and just preaching to the people big fat lies. And if you don't believe me on this, maybe you want to listen to a former CIA operative in Syria who went to Syria in order to support these so-called rebels. So Obama nixed CIA plan that could have stopped ISIS. So this is published in April 2016. The CIA in 2012 proposed a detailed covert action plan designed to remove Syrian President Bashar al-Assad from power, but President Obama declined to approve it, current and former US officials tell NBC News. It's long been known that then CIA Director David Petraeus recommended the program to secretly arm and train moderate Syrian rebels in 2012 to pressure Assad. But a book to be published Tuesday by a former CIA operative goes further revealing that senior CIA officials were pushing a multi-tiered plan to engineer the dictator's ouster. They call Assad a dictator, right? Former American officials involved in the discussions confirmed that to the NBC. Now, take a look. This is the guy himself who went to Syria. He was tasked by the CIA to topple Assad. Take a look.
A young CIA operative, Doug Laux, had recently arrived in the region after 2 tours tracking insurgents in Afghanistan. His boss had just told him his new assignment was to find out more about the Syrian rebels.
He taps you and tells you your mission in Syria is what? He says, look, you're going to be my eyes and ears. You know, I want to know what's going on.
In a new book redacted by the CIA before its release next week, Laux says the goal in Syria was clear: find covert ways to back the rebels and remove President Bashar al-Assad. Laux says he made detailed recommendations.
I was saying, hey, here's a possible solution. What if we try this? What if we try this?
Although a version of Laux's plan to arm rebels was publicly supported by senior officials in the Obama administration at the time, it was never implemented. The administration sent some weapons, but moderate Syrian rebels known as the Free Syrian Army collapsed, and ISIS carved out a terrorist enclave. Critics say it was one of President Obama's biggest foreign policy mistakes.
I'm confident we would be looking at a different Syria today if the President of the United States had not overruled David Petraeus, then head of the CIA, Hillary Clinton, Secretary of State, and Leon Panetta, who was then Secretary of Defense, who all unanimously recommended arming and training the Free Syrian Army.
But would have arming the rebels early on stopped the birth of ISIS? Interestingly, Laux doesn't think so.
So what about the argument if more had been done to help the rebels, help people like through the CIA or military help? If more had been done back then, there'd be no Paris, there'd be no Brussels, there'd be no ISIS. No, I think that's impossible to predict, and I think that's impossible to say. I think that ISIS was brewing regardless.
Laux resigned from the CIA in frustration. He says his intention isn't to be a whistleblower, but merely to describe what it was like to be a CIA case officer in wartime.
Isn't part of the CIA, isn't the mantra that you sign up and say, I'm not going to tell my war stories? A lot of my colleagues are upset with me and, I mean, livid with me about it.
It's a ground level look at how the CIA operated during the so-called global war on terrorism, and a view many at the agency wish was left unseen. Richard Engel, NBC News, New York.
I am going to look into this guy and I will find him and I will send him an invite. Maybe he comes to Syriana Analysis and let's speak together about his role and what the CIA did in Syria. It needs more elaboration. This type of interviews on MSNBC, sound bites, cherry picking of his statement is not enough. There has to be long format of conversation. I want to know in details what was his role and what was the program about. I mean, myself, I know, but I wanted to hear more details from the horse mouth. Some people say they are Zionists in the chat. Everybody is welcomed on this channel. If they want to watch my opinion, let them come and watch my opinion. I'm not going to censor their voices if they disagree with me. They can watch the truth and hopefully they would repent and they would change their mind. I don't know. I have met people who were arch-Zionists and they changed their mind. I hosted them on my YouTube channel. They grew up as Zionists. I hope that there are people like this would come and watch and should change their mind, because many Zionists are living in echo chambers and they just follow their own people, and they, especially if they are in Israel, they don't watch what the other people say or think about Israel. So maybe they would change their mind. I don't know. There is another video I would like to show you guys, and this is coming from former U.S. Senator Richard Black, who said that there is a document in 2006 drafted by the U.S. 2006, remember, because the war in Syria, regime change war, started in 2011. So according to him, in 2006, there was a document drafted by the U.S. Embassy in Damascus detailing the plans for overthrowing Assad, right? So here is the video that I wanted to show you.
What? This is stuff the American people have got to know. There is a document that was released, and it was drafted in the U.S. Embassy in Damascus, Syria, by the Chargé d'Affaires. We didn't have an ambassador at the time, so he was the top guy. And it details plans for overthrowing Syria. Now remember, there were no demonstrations. There was no uprising. People were prosperous. People were happy. People were ecstatic about President Assad and his wife. We draft plans. Now, two things in particular I'll point out. One was they said, look, we've got a problem because there's an enormous amount of foreign direct investment pouring into Syria. We've got to stop it. We've got to smear the reputation. Now, these are my words. It's not their words, but they say it in more, with a little more finesse. But the idea is smear the reputation and try to cut off this influx of funds. The other thing that they said, which is very sinister, is they said, look, there are opportunities we have where we can create religious divisions, and this can be used as a tool to create religious hatreds among people in Syria. This is coming out of the United States Embassy, which is supposed to be our friends representing the United States to Syria.
So they wanted to create religious divisions and sectarian divisions the same way that this Sami is doing. So I wanted to show you these videos for you to understand what is behind the thinking of this type of people. And when I say they are either useful idiots or collaborators, I mean it, because the truth is very, very obvious. But some people, they don't want to go and dig in one step further, And there are so many people nowadays terrified to tell the truth about Syria because they were so wrong in the past, and now they see the truth is being unveiled. They are still cowards, and they are unable to come and say, I was wrong, and I changed my mind. Syria was attacked because of its position on Palestine, on Lebanon, and supporting the Palestinian and Lebanese factions against Israel, and also in order to cut the supply line of weapons to these factions because of the Syrian foreign policy approach against U.S. hegemony, Israeli hegemony. They don't want to come and say all these things. I mean, now imagine if Syrian government has been toppled, and this war now started between Hezbollah and between Lebanon, Hezbollah, and Israel. Where would the people of Lebanon go? Lebanon is a small country. Syria received hundreds of thousands of refugees in 2006 war. And now it's the same thing, because Syria opens its borders completely now to the Lebanese people, those who want to come to Syria. And those are the thousands and thousands and thousands of cars going to Syria. Syrian-Lebanese borders are packed with thousands of Lebanese cars trying to take refuge in Syria. The Lebanese people are our brothers and sisters, and they are more than welcome in our country. But a better comment made by a Lebanese friend, his name is Mohammed Nabil, and he says this. I'm going to translate his post into English. He says, the doors of Syria are open to all Lebanese. Their homes are open and their entry is easy. No one takes $7,000 from them to cross the border, and no one besieges them and bargains with them over a tract of vegetables. Yes, this is the importance of Syria, and this is the greatness of Syria, which has not and will not join the bandwagon of normalization, treason, and collaboration. Thank you, Syria. I mean, he's criticizing here tacitly Egypt for, blocking the Gaza border and taking $7,000 per head to allow people from Palestine, from Gaza, to come to the Sinai or go to Egypt, right? Anyways, I just wanted to make this live streaming by myself. There were so many things that I wanted to tell you, so I'm happy that I did it by myself. Sometimes I host guests on this YouTube channel. If you're new, I host guests. We together have online conversation. I also invited people who disagree with me to come to my YouTube channel. I hope they accept that. So stay tuned for that, definitely. If you're watching this live streaming, we are over 1,000 people watching this on YouTube and on Rumble. I would highly appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to this YouTube channel. This is how you support my work. But most importantly, go to Rumble, create an account. It's very easy. It takes just 5 minutes. Create an account on Rumble and also follow the Syriana Analysis on Rumble, just in case we get deplatformed and being kicked out of YouTube, which is happening. The purge is very big now. They are kicking out independent journalists from YouTube. They don't want you to know about all this information. So if you want to continue learning about what's happening in the Middle East from my perspective, please follow me also on Rumble. And if you want to support Syriana Analysis, Syriana Analysis is an independent news and analysis platform. I do this solo. I do the research. I do the booking the guests. I do all the networking, communication, videos, and everything by myself, and present to you daily live streamings. If you want to support this work, you can become a patron. The link is scrolling on the screen, patreon.com/Syriana Analysis, and I will see you tomorrow is Wednesday, 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Salam.